Today's transmission has been titled, Tell Them Bashar Sent You. And this will be, in some sense, a continuation of what we have done before when we suggested that you take an illustration of either a hybrid or a gray that is provided for you to download in this transmission and cut it out, blow it up, paste it on some stiffer background, cardboard or foam core or whatever you wish that allows it to be rigid. Blow it up to the point where the head of the image of the gray or the hybrid from the top of the crown to the bottom of the chin fills one of your typical 8.5 by 11 inch pages, and therefore allow the rest of the neck and the shoulders to be whatever size they will be by following that measurement. And once, as we have described before, it has been placed on a rigid background, then place that cutout outside one of your windows, or more than one, as if it is peeking through the window at you, to get used to the idea as you're simply going about your daily business of now and then, out of the corner of your eye or more directly catching that image, especially at nighttime, peeking in at you, so that you can get used to the idea over time that there are interactions going on between those beings and yourself. And as you become more used to the idea of seeing them there, allowing yourself no longer to be startled by those particular images and starting to relate to those images pasted outside your window as if they are real three-dimensional beings looking at you physically through your window. So again, you can get used to the idea that interactions are going on, whether you are aware of them or not. This technique, as we have described it previously in that transmission, will allow you more ability to accept that these beings are in your reality and allow you more efficacy at actually being able to perceive them, the real beings, as they enter your reality and observe you and start to interact with you. This is for the purpose of making sure that you can begin to experience now, from this point forward, those interactions on a more conscious basis, on your own terms, as equals, without fear, so that you can not only remember some of the encounters you've already had that you may have forgotten one way or another, whether they were suppressed by the grays or the hybrids, or whether you suppressed them out of fear, doesn't matter. The idea now is that as you develop more of an equilibrium between yourself and your vibration and these beings, you can begin to remember the encounters you've already had and can become more aware and conscious of any future encounters as well. Now, to add to this and continue this process forward to get you, again, more used to the idea of open contact, because now we are starting bit by bit to proceed toward the beginning of the window at the end of 2023 of open contact, starting slowly, bit at a time. But more and more of these kinds of exercises will be shared with you, suggested for you, to give you, again, more ability to experience open contact in a way that is beneficial to all, without fear. And so what we will now add to this exercise, which you can keep doing to get, again, yourself used to this idea, and especially now that some of your military officials have begun the first stages, small stages, yes, but the first stages nonetheless of disclosure, by validating certain videos as authentic of UFOs. This is the beginning, the very, very beginnings of opening up to disclosure that we exist. So let's begin to take advantage of that momentum by adding to the previous exercise of the cutouts peeking at you through windows, by now allowing you, when you notice them at any time during the day or night, face them, walk up to them more closely on your side of the window or the glass door or wherever you have pasted them so that they appear to be peeking in at you. Walk up to them, maybe at about a distance of, let's say, 3 feet. And once you are in that position and looking at them and allowing yourself to feel comfortable looking at them, allow yourself to say the following words. I see you. I recognize you. I invite you to invite me to participate more openly, more consciously, without fear. And I introduce myself to you as a friend of the messenger, as a friend of Bashar, as a friend of the hybrids, as a friend of the children who will come to live among us. And I am open in whatever way serves everyone best to participate in the ongoing program of evolution that will allow Earth to move forward and become the 6th hybrid race. I allow this on my own terms, in an experience of comfort, in an experience of love, in an experience of allowance on both sides. And I allow myself to come into more awareness, more conscious recognition, more conscious realization of the ongoing encounters in my life and the participation of all of my counterparts and connections and my soul, family, and spirit guides and higher mind in this endeavor. For all concerned with love and peace. You may write all this down. You may read it out loud when you are facing that image. And if you wish, at the end, you can add, this is up to you. Bashar sent me, and I am here. We will leave that part up to you. Remember to do this with no insistence, no assumptions, just allowance, bit by bit. You can do this once a day if you wish, twice a day if you wish. You don't have to do it more than 3 times a day, but we will leave that up to you. And it doesn't have to last any longer than the reading we just gave you. But be earnest, be open, and if you feel any trepidation or fear, that is all right. You can stop, you can adjust, you can breathe, you can relax, you can even stop and start again later if you wish. This is all about getting comfortable with the existence of these beings in your reality and getting comfortable with your existence in our reality. So that again, you are creating and building up a frequency that is representative of the third reality between the both of our realities, respectively. That will be the reality in which open contact will occur to the best of all concerned. So practice this every day if you wish, to guide yourself more and more into the frequency of open contact. And we welcome you in this exercise and in this endeavor. So tell them Bashar sent you. We thank you now for allowing us to deliver this next phase of this exercise to you. Have fun with it, enjoy it, relax into it, be creative with it, and just be yourself and keep moving forward. And in return for this gift you have given us, in allowing us to suggest this to you, I ask you now, in what way may we be of service to you, You may begin with your questions and comments if you wish.
Hello, Bashar, and all of my great Essesani grandsons. Many people say your teachings and the teachings of Abraham are alike. However, I seem to find many differences. For example, they say that whatever you think and feel is what you attract. However, you say the beliefs are what generate thoughts and feelings, and therefore create a reality, one level above thought. When I used to listen to them, I was so obsessed and focused, monitoring 24/7 what I was thinking, all the time. And if a negative thought came to my mind, I was like, cancel, freaking out. However, you taught us that not only can we observe them neutrally, here and there, when they come, but that we have to, in order to face our fears and transform them and integrate them. You cannot transform what you do not own, as you say. And also, I was driving one day on a highway while listening to them, and I had a car crash. Nothing happened to me, thankfully. It was just the side of my car. But I was like, this shouldn't have happened while I'm listening to them, supposedly vibrating this high. So I wanted some clarity on those teachings. What's your true perspective about them? Thank you.
Different teachers have different ways of reaching different people with the translation of the words that come into your reality. There are people that gravitate to certain ways, certain semantics, certain words that are used to give them at least some understanding of the process. Other teachers may supply other aspects of it to give a different understanding, or at least an understanding of a different part of the process. Taken all together, you have a complete picture. But that doesn't necessarily mean that an absolutely complete picture or the same delivery will come through every single being that is a source of information. That's why it's so important for you in your evolution, as you change, as you grow, to pick the pieces out of any source of information that work for you and leave the rest behind. It may simply mean that you're now at a different place in your life where you need to hear things and do things in a different way. And therefore you gravitate to maybe one teacher one time and another teacher or another source another time, because you are piecing together from different sources what works for you to create the path of least resistance for who you truly prefer to be. So it's not so much the idea that there's any contradiction. You're simply looking at things from different points of view, using different ways and methods that appeal to different people who have different belief systems and need to hear things and receive things in different ways at different times. Now, with respect to the idea of your car crash, there can be many different levels on which you can look at this. Number one, on a very simplistic level, you can say that you may have created for yourself an experience that on the most simplistic, basic physical level simply says, pay attention to what's going on when you're doing something physically, because you can get hurt if you're not paying attention. So on the simplest level, the most basic physical level, you could simply say it's a lesson of don't be distracted when you're doing something like driving a car. Otherwise, this is what happens or can happen. That's a very simplistic lesson on a very basic physical level. On other levels, you could say, all right, you were in a state of being where you realized that by being in that state of being, that no matter what happened around you, no matter how dangerous it seemed, you would emerge unscathed. And therefore, being on that level, in some sense, allowed you to experience a different reality than what you allowed the car to experience, proving to you that physical reality, in some sense, can be circumvented. And so that could be part of the lesson as well. So there can be many levels to this idea, but it is not always wise to assume that just because you believe you're on a certain level that certain physical things can't happen, because again, please remember, the basic concept is it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that shows what level you're on, what vibrational state you're in. So the idea is not that a car crash shouldn't have happened because I was on a high vibrational state. That's an insistence and assumption that doesn't necessarily serve the purpose of the experience, because it just demonstrated to you that just about anything can happen no matter what level you're on, because it's not about the idea of what happens, it's about the idea of what you do with what happens that really makes the difference in your experience of physical reality. So all these different things can come into play. It can be one or more or all of them, and it's up to you to determine what other lessons you can learn from having had that experience. But be open to the idea of not being insistent on what you think should or shouldn't be a reflection of the state you're in, because again, that really shouldn't matter.
Good day, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you so much for this co-creation. I'm so excited to talk to you.
It is our passion and our pleasure to speak with all of you as well.
I was surprised in your monologue. It's so playful.
Yes.
The suggestion, and also, you acknowledge that some people might be afraid to go in that way, but this playful way of approaching it, that must help us loosen. That must help us.
That's the idea, yes.
And I also, when I was a child, was very terrified of, I don't know why, I had an inexplicable fear of,
yes,
alien contact.
Well, that's because as children, when many of these contacts actually start happening in your lives, you have never been taught that such a thing is actually going on in your reality, and therefore you haven't been given the tools in order to handle it, and so you feel that when you are shifted to the different realities that are representative of these different beings you're interacting with, you feel out of control. Your physical mind doesn't understand what's going on because it doesn't have the tools to deal with it. And therefore, you feel out of control, and even to the point of going into survival mode, because the physical personality feels that when being shifted from the typical reality you're used to a different frequency of reality, it feels like you are being annihilated, that you're dying, and so you go into panic mode. So the idea of what we deliver to all of you are the tools necessary to incorporate within your understanding of how reality works, how these encounters are occurring, and give you the ability to calm yourselves and realize that from a higher level you made a choice to participate in this, whether you remember it or not, and thus you can operate within it more consciously, with more awareness, on your own terms, and experience something quite fascinating and joyful and creative and constructive as you remember more and more your willingness to participate in the evolution of the Earth toward becoming the sixth hybrid race.
But when you say the evolution of the Earth,
yes,
you're also, you're kind of describing our, because we're in our own reality, right? Each of us is in our own reality.
Yes, but you have a shared, agreed upon experience that you call your reality timeline.
Right. Got it. And so, now I'm really excited for this to take place. I can't believe, I'm so excited that it's even possible in my lifetime, potentially.
Yes, it is.
And my physical mind looks out there at the world and things it thinks it's noticing, and thinks to itself, oh my God, we have to go so far between now and 2023 to be really prepared to have a
first of all, don't gauge that by everything you see. Remember that you are capable still of looking at people making choices that represent other realities other than the one you're actually in. Just because you can see them doesn't mean you're in the same reality.
Yeah, the glass wall effect.
Exactly. So don't necessarily include everyone that you see having to be at that point. It is sufficient that those that are ready at that point to begin to experience the first stages of open contact will be at a point where they're prepared to do so.
Okay. So is there a way to discern if something I'm seeing is actually relevant for me to kind of address, or it's just something behind the glass wall? I guess my highest excitement will take care of that.
Following the formula will allow you better and clearer discernment about what is relevant for you and what is not, yes. Of course, everything in a sense that you see is relevant. It just might be relevant in a different way. So in other words, it can be even as simple as seeing something you would say is not really relevant for your path doesn't mean that it's not relevant for you to use in the way that works for you. For example, seeing someone making choices that you don't prefer can add greater clarity to the choices that you do prefer. So even though the things they're choosing aren't directly relevant for you, the fact that you're capable of seeing someone choosing something you don't prefer is relevant because it provides greater background and clarity for you about what it is, by contrast, that you do prefer. So that's how to use what isn't relevant directly in an indirect way that is relevant for you.
And I guess also, if I see someone making a choice and it kind of triggers me emotionally, like maybe fear comes up, yes, and that's also an opportunity to look at what beliefs.
Absolutely, and therefore relevant for you on that context as well.
Got it. And when I'm doing that, I try to look at my beliefs, go through the emotions to find the beliefs is kind of the way it seems to work for me.
Yes.
And but sometimes there are certain beliefs that just keep reappearing, and I know that you've mentioned that sometimes there can be belief systems and
yes,
other beliefs reinforce the other ones, but certain beliefs like I'm wrong, or I shouldn't exist. I know those don't make physical sense because it's arguing with life, as you've eloquently put it, but somehow they stay sticky. And I'm just wondering if there's anything else you can help us with. Or
well, all right. Well, again, the idea being that you may need to investigate more deeply what it is you're getting out of holding on to those things. Because that's the only reason they would keep reoccurring, is there must be a belief that says there is some advantage to this, some advantage to remembering this or recreating this idea. Now, it can be as simple as you saying, well, I do have a belief that if I don't keep reminding myself, I might forget and then fall into a regimen that I don't prefer. So in that sense, you might be using it for a positive reminder to keep you on track. Now, if you continue to believe you need that reminder, then it will constantly be there reminding you to always be aware that you could choose to go this way, but because of the fact that it keeps cropping up, you will never go that way. You don't have to keep doing it that way, but that may be one reason why you would keep repeating an awareness of something you don't prefer, because you might be using it as a guidance system to make sure you actually never choose that direction.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think so.
So I'm not saying that is the reason. I'm simply saying that could be one of the reasons. It's up to you to investigate based on what I just told you about the idea that there must be something you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
That you believe serves you. Whether it actually does or not isn't the issue. There must be something you believe you're getting out of it that serves you. And the more you investigate it from that perspective, the sooner you will understand why you might keep repeating that cycle.
I'm trying to ask my question myself that question now. And actually what comes is this belief that it's keeping me small so I'm not seen.
Oh, all right. And why don't you want to be seen? What are you afraid will happen if you are seen? Which is another question to always ask. What are you afraid will happen if you become who you prefer to be? So what's the answer to that one?
It feels dangerous, like someone's going to come get me.
Dangerous. Oh, someone's going to come and get you. Yes. How melodramatic.
I know, it's true.
Now, this is simply the result of a misunderstanding of how frequencies work. Remember, if you actually are in the frequency of your true self, your passion, there cannot be, by definition, anything dangerous in that. If you suddenly feel that something dangerous might happen if you act on your passion, that's not a vibration of your passion. You're already out of the vibration of your passion to even think and entertain that something like that could happen.
I see. So the belief, the resistant belief has already kicked in.
Yes, because you are conflating and contradicting the idea of the definition of passion with a contradictory vibration of something dangerous happening to you, which, if you understand the pure definition of your true self, knows that that's not possible. You can only experience even the idea of the fear of something happening if you've already left the vibration of your true self, which shows you still have a belief that says it's better and safer for you to leave that vibration. Because you would know, just through the idea of understanding the physics of it, that you cannot experience what you're not the frequency of. So if you are the frequency of your true self and passion, then how can you experience anything that is actually truly dangerous to you? Why would you attract it?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And again, at the same time, remember, that doesn't mean you won't see things that might symbolize the idea of what could be dangerous. But again, it doesn't matter what you see. It only matters what you do with what you see that makes the difference. And if you stay in your vibration of passion, you will always respond to what you're seeing, even if it's what you don't prefer, in a way that allows you to use it in a way you do prefer and get a benefit from it. So remember, being in the state of passion, your true self, doesn't mean you can no longer see things that are not representative of what you prefer. It simply means that you will respond to them differently, even if they still exist and are still perceivable in your reality. That's the measure of change. Many people on your planet confuse the idea that, oh, well, I'm on a different vibratory level, I should never be seeing these things again. That's not true. As you expand your consciousness, you don't become less aware of the negative, you become more aware of the negative, but you become less likely to choose it as your experiential reality. So the idea is, it doesn't really matter to a truly centered being what happens. It only matters to them what they do with what happens, because that's what makes the difference in their experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
I know. That's why I said it.
Yeah, thank you. It's so interesting that the more we expand, actually, the more aware we become of negative choices.
Well, of course, because the idea of positive and negative and the center point permeates all of existence. Therefore, as you expand your awareness of more and more and more of existence beyond the physical, you're going to learn about more of the positive and more of the negative, as well as the center point in the trinity of neutrality and balance between the two.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bashar. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Bashar, I am Xia from China. I'm so excited to ask you this question. You've mentioned that in physical and non-physical reality, the journey never ends. Could you share your perspective about some yogis on Earth leave the physical dimensions through their chakras and merge their energy into all that is? Is that the end of the journey? And if that's not the end of the journey, where does that energy go? And what's the point of the endless manifestation? Could you elaborate more on this? Thank you so much.
It is not the end of their journey, and it's not that you need a point to the idea of continuing manifestation. That's simply the nature of existence in terms of experiencing itself in infinite ways. What would be the point of no more manifestations? Would be perhaps another question that could be asked instead. The idea is that existence is constantly expanding in its experience of itself, which is all the different ways that all of you are creating new perspectives and experiences of the structure itself that never changes. So no, nothing is ever the end, because even when you experience what appears to be a merger with all that is, there can still be different experiences of all that is. So that never ends. It's just the nature of existence.
Hello, guys.
And to you, good day.
Good day, dear Bashar. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to interact with you and with your civilization.
It is again my passion and my pleasure.
So, there is this portal in a park in Bucharest, in Romania, where beautiful contact is already occurring. And then there is this portal in the Giants Playground in Montana. Do I understand correctly that interacting with that portal that leads to ancient advanced technology is a stepping stone towards open contact?
Yes.
Is there more that you would or could share about that?
No, because this is something that has to naturally unfold. People will gravitate to these ideas, these portals, these doorways and gateways, according to what it is they gravitate to that is based on their own passion. And things will unfold naturally in the way that they need to. There is nothing more I need to say about it at this time other than follow your passion, follow your instincts, and engage in whatever way your imagination so desires to allow it to unfold in the most natural way. It will guide you.
Thank you.
Yes.
When scanning my energy, do you think that what I perceived on the way to work on March 22nd, far out in the field off to the side of the road, there was a giant portal flickering up?
Yes, or it can also be connected with side effects to different energy grids on the planet in a variety of ways. As you increase and expand your consciousnesses, your senses will become more sensitive to the movement and appearance of different forms of energy around your planet that are fluctuating all the time. There are different kinds of portals in different places, but sometimes the energy you may perceive may not be directly a portal, but maybe a side effect or a ripple from a nearby portal. You have to increase your sensitivity to these things to be able to tell the difference.
Thank you.
Yes.
Could you tell me where I'm at in my frequency at this time?
I can, but remember, when I do, your frequency will go down.
Okay, thank you, then no thank you.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Because again, remember, the need to know your frequency lowers your frequency because there's no need to know your frequency. The idea is just to move forward and act on your passion and follow the formula, knowing that as you do so, your frequency will constantly rise. Stopping to ask what the frequency is like being on a road trip and then stopping and wondering how long it's going to take you to get where you're going. But now that you've stopped, it will take you longer. You see the analogy?
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm happy to tell you, but it doesn't really serve any of you to know that because it stops the flow.
Thank you. That is much more useful to me. Thank you.
All right.
I would love to extend my greetings to the Shalanaya, to the 13, to the Morning Star, and of course,
All right.
for whom my doors are always open. And I'm, very thankful for the visitors that have decided to show themselves yesterday on May 7th in the night sky for me and my family to witness.
All right. Well, greetings have been returned.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything that the Shalanaya or the 13 or Morning Star would like to share?
Not at this time. You are missing nothing that you need that's relevant for you.
Thank you. Thank you for everything. I love
You are welcome. Thank you. Good day.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar. This is Andra. I have some really exciting news. I made more contact with my elemental friend, and it was thanks to a piece of information that you gave me when we talked. So I was actually able to see her more clearly. During my last ceremony, she popped out from behind my left shoulder and flew right in front of me and up above into the light that was right above my head. And she actually hovered there for a short while, and I got a really good look at her. And she had dragonfly wings, and she looked like a hybrid between a human and an insect. She had like insect legs, but definitely a humanoid body. And I almost can't believe that this happened. I got a really good look at her, and I'm so excited. I can't even put it in words, but I'm sure you'll see it in my energy. And I would love to tell you the whole story. There's a lot more pieces to it. I would love to tell you the whole story someday. But for now, I just want to say thank you, because it was the information that you gave me that allowed me to move forward and have this amazing experience that changed my life.
First of all, again, all of you, please remember, elementals are not fixed in physical form. They can take whatever form they wish. And sometimes, to be of service, they will take forms that are symbolically representative of certain aspects of connections you may have in your own energy. So the idea is that obviously the hybrid is a symbol that you're connected to the hybrids in different ways, to the hybridization agenda. The insect-like appendages are an indication of interactions you've had with the beings that are referred to in the hybrid interactions as the mantis beings, which many people describe as insect-like. The dragonfly wings are kind of a similar interpretation for the idea that some of your energy is also connected to the domain of the non-physical entities, other dimensional entities that often, when they project themselves into your reality, are perceived as the beings you call dragons. So that one elemental was reflecting to you three different kinds of connections that you have created in your reality path in order to represent the journey that you're on and different aspects of it at different times.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
So I have a question for you.
Oh, thank you.
So for me, one of the most exciting ancient symbols found in mythologies from around the world is the cosmic serpent, or DNA. Can you
Yes.
give me your interpretation of the archetype of DNA?
The archetype of DNA.
Yes.
It's the first template in which consciousness can express itself in physical reality. So it is the physical representation. It is actually what you are as a physical being. In other words, this idea of the person that you consider yourself to be, just to use a simplistic analogy, is the suit in which DNA, the DNA you actually are as a physical consciousness, has wrapped itself in so that it can navigate the idea of physical reality. So you, as a non-physical being, create a template pattern within your consciousness with the intention of experiencing the idea of physical reality. The first level of that experience, of that expression, of that intention, turns electromagnetic energy into a physical template pattern you recognize as DNA that contains all the information of the person you have decided to be, of the destiny you have decided to explore in the idea, the experience of physical reality. So it is the interface between non-physical and physical reality, the first expression, physically speaking, in atomic terms, subatomic terms, of the intention to experience physical reality. A crystallization of that intention in physical terms. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Yes.
All
Thank you. So it's interesting because when I tap into the idea of DNA, the Oracle of Delphi keeps showing up for me.
Yes.
And it's my understanding that the first Pythia is the source of the phrase, know thyself.
In some senses, it's an older phrase, but nevertheless, it has been translated and interpreted in different cultures in different ways, but with the same basic meaning.
Okay. It's also the message I received when I had a session with the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull.
Yes.
And it's also the phrase that you used in the meditation segment of the Council of 13 and the Crystal Skulls transmission.
Yes. It's one of the most important states of being, because the more you become transparent to yourself, the more you understand yourself, the clearer your belief systems are, the more you know yourself, the better discernment you have about what is and isn't relevant for your journey, your path.
There's so many different theories on how the Pythia was able to have her visions. Can you tell me a little bit about the first rituals associated with the Oracle of Delphi?
Well, first and foremost, there is in that experience a clearer understanding of how reality works, in the sense that everything is here and now. So the concepts of space and time were understood to be illusions. Therefore, just like dialing in a particular frequency to access certain information, all of which is accessible from every single point in existence, because everything is, in a sense, the same point from a different point of view, then the oracle simply understood all that was needed was the adjustment of the frequency to represent the knowledge that was required, and therefore became the frequency of that knowledge and expressed the frequency of that knowledge in translated terms that made sense for the culture. Does that explain it in the way that you were looking for?
Yeah, so she didn't necessarily use the gases from the fault line or snake venom or...
Well, I'm not saying that there weren't permission slips that could be used to aid and assist, but the basic understanding is what I just described to you.
Got it.
Because people can still use permission slips even with a basic understanding.
Awesome. So would you say, or could you give me some insight on why she's showing up when I'm connecting into the idea of DNA?
As I said, the idea of DNA contains all the information of your particular path as this personality, including the most probable and likely energetic connections you will make to other simultaneous beings that exist at the same time you do, whether you consider them to be in the past, the present, or the future, or what have you. The idea, therefore, is that DNA contains the frequency of the connection you have made, because the personality and the path that you're on determines that it would be helpful for you to have a connection to that particular individual in another time frame to aid and assist you in your exploration of your ability to change your frequency and download the information you need to guide you on your journey.
That's so exciting. Well,
This happens to simply be the particular timing in which that particular connection needed to stand out to you.
perfect. Well, that's all I have for you. Thank you so
All right.
much.
We thank you, and good day.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar. My name is Martin from Illinois. I recently received a clairvoyant reading, and I was told that there are negative beings that intend to influence me, perhaps through the phenomenon called gang stalking or targeted harassment. I've come across the ideas that perhaps we were created to be harvested for emotional energy called loosh, perhaps there is a being called the demiurge, and archons that attempt to deceive us through channels and fake holograms of a tunnel of light, and angels and life reviews at death to trick us into staying in this earth matrix. And that our true home is the dark, empty void of creation. And my question is, even if we do create our reality here through our beliefs and our actions, and that a system of logic and evidence will appear to support that, how can we know if the whole basis of this creation isn't a trap for souls? Thank you, Bashar. Bye.
What a fascinating story. And that's basically all it is. The idea is not to give over to the outdated, old-fashioned ways of interpreting things based on fear-based beliefs. But I'll approach this from a very different direction. I'll give you some quote-unquote practical information about this, and I'll give you a philosophical approach to this idea of there possibly being this soul trap, as it's been called or referred to. First, the practical idea. If you will examine many of the reports of what are called near-death experiences or transmissions from spirits that have gone beyond physical reality, you will hear absolutely none of this from any of them. So that can be a demonstration that those that have already gone through the experience of physical death in some way, shape, or form and have either returned or communicated about it from the spirit world never mention such a story or such an experience as ever having happened. So that's one side of it that you can explore through your own research into those reports. But here's the philosophical idea and approach. What is the definition of a trap? A trap is something that only works when you don't know it's there. That's how you fall into it. So the idea that such a story exists and that you can actually be aware that there might be such a thing as a soul trap should demonstrate that there's no such thing, because if there really were, you wouldn't know about it. You would just experience being trapped, and that would be the end of it. So the idea is to logic yourself through this by understanding that if you know about a trap, what can you do? You can avoid it. Even if it does exist, you can avoid it by having knowledge of it beforehand. So change your vibration, and you will no longer be equal to the idea that there is a trap. But here's the irony. The trap, if there is one, is the story itself that gets people to believe that there's a trap. That's the trap, believing that there is one. because then you don't see it coming, in a sense. You don't realize that the story itself you're being told, the story you're being told to buy into, is the trap. So, don't fall for the trap. Now that you know how traps work, don't fall for it.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
So, you and other teachers often talk about the idea of continuity and continuation after this lifetime experience.
Yes, yes.
That we're eternal, that we always have more experience, that it never ends.
Correct.
And I wonder if after we die, we wake up out of time and space, how can we continue to have more experience? Doesn't that rely on time?
In some sense, yes. I'm not saying that you become completely timeless when you die. You can experience the idea of timelessness, but very quickly you allow yourself to experience some degree of the idea of time and space. It's just that in the spirit realm, it's far more flexible, far less rigid.
But then if we allow ourselves to experience the idea of timelessness, wouldn't we then after that have to experience time again? And wouldn't that rely on time in and of itself, because there's a first this and then that kind of situation?
Well, that's a very time-oriented way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the true simultaneity of existence, in the true timeless state, remember, there's no real experience in the way that you mean it, typically. So that's clearly understood, and therefore, in order for existence to continue to expand its experience of itself, there must be even a minimal imposition of the idea you call time and space, although it can be experienced in a very different way on very different levels that is going to be very foreign to the way you experience the idea of time and space.
That's interesting. So I'm getting the sense that there's kind of layers of...
Yes.
And that also, like, similarly, here in this Earth experience, we're experiencing the illusion of continuity by switching frames billions of times per second.
Yes.
And I was wondering, like, how are we experiencing continuity at all if we're actually projected into all of these frames at the same time?
Because you have agreed to play the game of physical reality, which means that even though you are projected into all the frames simultaneously, you don't allow yourself to experience them simultaneously.
That's
You have
interesting.
agreed to play by the rules of the game, which says you're going to experience one frame at a time, whether you already occupy all of them or not.
Does that mean that on a higher level, the whole thing's completely set up already, or is there still somehow wiggle room and free will in that?
There is wiggle room and free will because the structure itself is set up. The structure never changes. What changes is your experience and your perspective of the structure that never changes. And it's those experiences that allow existence to experience the sense of growth and expansion and change.
Okay. I'm also curious, and maybe this ties into that, and if so, I'll move past it. But Bashar, you often refer to Daryl as your past self, right?
For the convenience of understanding a certain perspective, yes. Obviously, we both exist simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was wondering, because you also say that cross connections aren't eternal, they're formed for reasons. So I was wondering if there was a fixed relationship there, or if it's just a continuously created cross connection.
It is a continuously created cross connection that appears fixed to you because of the nature of your mentality looking at the continuity of the experience.
Interesting. And so lots of teachings talk about Earth as a school where we're kind of trying to graduate or complete all of our karma and wake up.
Yeah, it's an old-fashioned way of kind of looking at it, and that's all right. But from our perspective, rather than looking at it as kind of a kindergarten in the way many Earth people do, it's really a master class graduating. Because you're learning to transform the idea of limitation into freedom, of darkness into light, of limitation into something that you can master and utilize to your advantage. So it's quite a strong school to learn from.
And is there an end game to it where we're trying to finish it, or is it more of like an open sandbox where we come to have the experience that's offered here, but we're not like stuck in it until we're out of it.
No, it's both. You can create your own cycles of beginnings and endings within it, according to your own plans and choices. And it is also something that is open-ended, because eventually, when you have decided that you've learned everything you need to learn from this particular game, you'll move on, but someone else will decide that maybe they need to play this game for a while, and so they'll then enter the sandbox, even though you have determined that there is a beginning and an ending to the cycles of your experience of the sandbox.
So these cross connections that we form with other lifetimes that aren't ours, but we form connections with them for various reasons, is there an energetic bleed over, or do they affect each other back and forth in some way where like the energy from one comes into mine and I process it while they're processing some energy from my lifetime over there?
Yes, absolutely. It's an absolute multi-directional interconnected web.
Oh, cool. You run through my questions so fast. It's great.
Oh, I apologize.
It's okay.
Oh, all right.
One more. Do you know what we're going to ask before we ask it?
No. Sometimes. If it's relevant for me to do so, yes. If it's not, then no. Sometimes it is important for you to open the door so that we understand what it is that's important for you for us to focus on.
Okay, well, I guess I'll let go for now. Thank you so much for your interaction.
Again, it is our passion and our pleasure. Thank you.
Hey Bashar, I wanted to ask a question, and the question is about art. What is the highest purpose and the role of art in people's lives? And yeah, what's its functions? Is it just one function? Is it many functions? Is it worthy? Does it have a real value? Is it superficial? Is it profound? Is it needed? So thank you so much for answering this question about art.
It depends on how the art was created. Art is a mirror that allows everyone perceiving the art to see reflections and symbols of what it is they need to see if they are willing to look. So sometimes art can be created through the idea of superficiality or something that's more profound, but it also requires the looker to come from either a superficial or a more profound place in order to get out of it whatever they need. And that part of it is up to them. But it's a mirror that offers an opportunity as a permission slip for people to look deeper within themselves, their consciousness, the archetypal symbols of the collective consciousness. Anything they wish to perceive about themselves can be seen in different kinds of art that are done for different reasons, according to what the belief system of the artist might be.
Hello, Bashar. How are you? My name is Dali. I'm from Chile.
Oh, all right. Good day.
Thank you very much for this experience. Well,
it is our pleasure.
When I was younger, I had an experience that led me to feel shame, guilt, and fear for many, many years. And as a side effect, I became more paranoid and vulnerable about interacting with other people and so on. Yes, and as a side effect, for many years, I developed this sense of vulnerability and paranoia with some other interactions.
Yes.
As fear, like, how can I explain this? I became more paranoid and vulnerable, and somehow irrationally, they get to link to this experience. So a month ago, I decided to work on this, and the reign of terror came to me. But now I see more clarity. But sometimes this anxiety, vulnerability, and paranoia feelings, they come to me, and I would like to know how to deal with them.
Well, you have to always start with what you now believe to be true about yourself in any given situation, because you cannot experience any emotion whatsoever if you don't already have a belief that you're buying into as being more probable than any other belief, as being true for you. So what beliefs do you have that would generate feelings that you're talking about?
Yeah.
What are they? What are they? What do you believe is true?
That someone would say something to me that I will feel vulnerable and more guilty and more ashamed that I have done before.
Why? Why would what someone says make you feel that way if you didn't believe it was true?
Because I guess the fear of guilt or feeling guilty.
You're
or
talking
feeling
in circles. You're talking in circles. You're saying that I am afraid to investigate the belief because it's going to make me feel more guilty, but the belief is what is making you feel guilty to begin with. So what do you believe you are guilty of?
Actually, for making a mistake to hurt someone.
Like what, for example?
I don't really want to talk about it. Like.
Then I can't help you directly, but I can help you indirectly.
Okay.
You said it was a mistake.
Yeah.
That means you didn't intend to hurt them?
No.
All right. Then why are you punishing yourself for making a mistake? Have you learned from making the mistake that you don't want to do that again?
Yes, I did.
Then if you have learned the lesson, why are you still in the class learning the lesson over and over and over again instead of moving on and applying the lesson that you've learned and then not making the same mistake?
Yeah, so I guess I went into that belief, and then I realized that I was afraid of rejection, actually.
All right.
So I've been working more on self-love.
Yes.
And now it's better.
All right.
So much better. I see with way more clarity.
All
It's just
right.
sometimes I still feel this little anxiety, or maybe it's kind of like there's a little bit of emotion that still lingers, but now
That's fine. That's fine. Just keep moving toward the understanding that you are worthy, that you are deserving.
Yeah.
Love yourself more and more, and understand it's all right now and then to make a mistake. It's not the end of the world, because if you're willing to learn from it, then you will improve. You will become a different person that will then behave differently in the world toward others. There is no reason for you to feel guilty about that process. It's how many people on your planet learn. So just go along with it. As long as you're willing to learn from the mistake, then there is no reason for you to feel guilty for having made the mistake.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I know.
Now it feels so much better. I think synchronicities brought into my life many of the answers.
Yes, of course. That's how it works.
Yeah, indeed. And it's just sometimes just a little bit. I feel like scared of going out sometimes, but
At that moment, then stay with that. Don't go by it. Don't rush past it. Don't ignore it. Don't suppress it. Use that moment to find out what beliefs still remain within you that would create that anxiety. That's what that moment is for.
Perfect.
All right?
Perfect. May I ask you, is there any kind of affirmation that can help me open more that space?
That's up to you. Because affirmations are nothing more than permission slips that you give yourself to give yourself permission to change. So whatever you're attracted to use, the reason you're attracted to use it is because it will work for you.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I've been meditating. It's been so much better. I just had that main question that helps me so much, Bashar.
All right. Well, obviously, in many ways, you're doing just fine. So the only thing we would suggest is don't be so hard on yourself. You don't deserve it. All right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good day.
Thank you so much.
Hey Bashar, this is Michael from Tel Aviv, and I'm happy to be speaking with you. My question has to do with lucid dreaming. You once gave us a permission slip technique on how to wake up in our dream state, and once we do that, we can ask to be taken to the template level reality and change around some agreements, change around the stories we believe we're living. So my question is, if I manage to do that, can I remove all the negative beliefs that I might still be holding on to and wake up the next morning into a reality that's a lot more representative of who I am, of what I want, that is more true to me? Or will that shift be too much for my physical mind to handle? Will the change be too big? Will I recognize the reality once I wake up? So my question really is, what is the best way to utilize the ability to lucid dream once that ability is acquired? Thank you and good day.
You can wake up into a reality that is certainly more representative. You will not necessarily eliminate all of the processes you might need to go through in order to create that reality that is more reflective of your preference. Obviously, you would be able to handle it if you did it because you would be equivalent to that reality. Therefore, the idea that you couldn't handle it would be contrary to that reality. But visiting the template doesn't mean you remove everything. It doesn't erase the idea of the general collective agreement of the game you're playing in the earth physical reality game, as you say. But you can change certain things as long as they don't eliminate processes you believe you actually need in order to experience a deeper appreciation of the new reality that you're creating. So yes, you can change it to some degree. That doesn't mean you can just change everything, because again, that might be another way of saying you're attempting to avoid things that you actually need to experience in order to really create that reality in the way that truly works for you.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Oh, great. How are you?
Perfect. And you?
Very good, thanks. My first
All
question is in regards to parallel universes, changing past and changing futures.
Yes, yes.
As far as the changing past, why would jumping from frame to frame change the past? It's the past and our choices that brought us to the present.
Yes. However, remember that if you actually become a different person, which you do, anytime you make any change at all, you're jumping into a different frame. So let's look at this from a space-time perspective logically. Because you create the idea in space-time of continuity or cause and effect, you think that what you went through made you the person you are today. And in a sense, that's true. However, when you finally decide to change, that new person needs a past that may be more logically the path that created that person. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, let's say, let's say I took a picture in the past and I go and look at it, it's still there. Even though I've
No, it's still here.
It's still from there, is right.
No, it's not. It's from here.
Yeah. Would it
You're
change?
creating an idea of a picture that you're looking at in the present as if it actually came from the past, but it doesn't. You're creating that picture in the present. And you're making the continuity assumption that it comes from the past. It doesn't.
So could that picture change in the present?
No.
No, okay.
That picture is that picture. This is one of the things that we address when we talk about the concept that you humans refer to as time travel. There's no such thing in the science fiction sense that you usually portray it. It's all about parallel reality. So we usually use this analogy. Let us say you are 10 years old and someone takes a picture. Now you have that picture, you put it on the table. There's the photograph of the 10-year-old. Now you become 30 and you invent a time machine. And you say, I'm going to go back into the past and I'm going to take a picture next to my 10-year-old self. And so you have that experience. You get in the machine, you go into what you think is the past, you go and find your 10-year-old self, or at least what you believe to be your 10-year-old self. You stand next to that particular 10-year-old, you have someone snap a picture. Now you have a picture of the 30-year-old and the 10-year-old, and you put that on the table when you come back to the present, so to speak. But you still have both pictures. There is a picture of the 10-year-old by himself and a picture of a 10-year-old with a 30-year-old, which obviously by definition, since both pictures exist, must be a different 10-year-old. So you just went into a parallel reality where you've taken a picture with a different 10-year-old that happens to look like you, assuming that it's actually you, but actually has nothing to do with your history.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, I will.
Because both pictures simultaneously exist on their own. Each frame is its own frame. You don't change the frame in a movie film strip. You go to another frame to change the image.
Yeah, I get that.
All the film strip frames all exist. You set your course through them with your consciousness as to what frames are relevant for you. So that's why we're saying when you change yourself, different frames may be relevant for who you now are. And you may not remember that you've changed the past to make sense of your present new self. It may always seem to be the past you've always had, but you don't actually know that. It just looks that way.
Okay.
So 5 minutes ago, the you are now, or the you used to be, may have had a completely different past than what you remember as the past right now as the new person you are. But it will organize itself through continuity in physical space-time to make itself seem as if, oh yes, I've always had that past. But that's not necessarily true.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot to think about. Thank you.
All right, play with it. You're welcome. Thank you. Yes.
One more. When did all that is think of another? When did it occur and what was before?
You're asking a space-time question. Remember, space and time are subject to all that is. All that is not subject to space and time.
So it was just always there.
Existence only has one quality.
To exist.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's not even an always, because that's a space-time word.
Yeah.
It just is. Does that help?
It will.
All right. Have fun with it.
I know this is a question, but do I have time for one more question?
Yes.
What does Jesus Christ's life, death, and rebirth represent for us here in physical reality? I'm also having a little trouble interpreting the dying for our sins part.
Yes, that is kind of, again, a human interpretation based on a fear-based belief system. The idea was to actually show you, if you go a little bit beyond the idea of the death, what came after.
Life.
Right? The idea of the resurrection, yes?
Reincarnation?
Resurrection.
Would it be translated to maybe reincarnation?
Not in the way that most people on your planet mean it, but the next transmission we're going to give next month of your time is all about the idea of reincarnation and how to look at it differently. So we can explain some of that later. But the idea right now is the whole process of an ascended master or a learned being going through that process on your behalf or on everyone else's behalf was to simply demonstrate the idea that while the body may seem to be impermanent, you as a being, as an entity, transcend time and space, and therefore no death is actually the end of anything.
Yeah. Okay, so the dying for our sins part, is that...
Let me retranslate it.
Yeah.
Yeshua went through that process and allowed the idea of the physical representation to seem to die in order to go beyond and show that a resurrection is the continuation of consciousness and the continuation of life beyond death, that you are greater beings than that. And the so-called dying for your sins simply means, let me show you that you have fear-based belief systems that are limiting you from understanding what I'm about to show you.
Okay.
So, in other words, the fear-based belief system is what is colloquially being referred to as your sins, because they place limitations on your consciousness that don't need to necessarily be there.
Yeah, okay.
Does that help?
It does.
All right, then thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Bashar. This is Jethro from Amsterdam. My question is about what is called spiritual bypassing. It is a term that pops up lately a lot in my experience in the so-called spiritual communities. And it states that people are using knowledge or spiritual knowledge and teachings in a way so that they don't have to work on themselves and not have to face what's happening on their inside, and basically to stay in a constant positive state or in a elevated state. My question is, as this could be also an exploration of the higher self or a spirit, is there even such a thing as spiritual bypassing? All right. Thank you, and goodbye.
In the way that has just been described, no. Because the very idea of attempting to avoid looking at certain things within the self that might be necessary for the evolution of your spiritual growth is a contradiction in terms and a completely different energy state. Therefore, the moment that someone avoids, they are actually going down in vibration into the negative states. Therefore, they're bypassing nothing. So the idea is, yes, you can have moments where you're focused on the idea of your relationship with the higher mind, and it may not involve in that moment needing to look at something within yourself that you're attempting to avoid, but it can give you what you need to be better capable of handling that when it comes time for you to look at those things. But avoiding looking at those things is completely missing the point of having actual spiritual growth.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have some questions from our viewers.
All right, please proceed.
Okay, the first question is about contact, and the idea is the